Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for October 28th, 2022. I'm Benji Fisher, moderating and sharing my screen. And also here are Offer Schall, Ralph Kohler, and Thomas Howell. And we thought we'd start today by looking at this old issue, Move Custom Block Library to Content. It's issue 2862564. I've been following this issue for a while. I guess it was created 5.5 years ago. And I guess just for the sake of the recording, I think everyone on this call is familiar with it. The way you find, this by the way is a fresh install of the Mommy demo profile in Drupal 10. But the way to find the list of custom blocks is to start on the structure menu, then you go to block layout, and then you go to custom library. And here's the list. This is a list of content. These are content items. And like everyone I've talked to agrees that this should be under the content menu. You have content, which means nodes, you have files, and you have media. And there should just be another tab there that says blocks. And then it's, I think, particularly weird that after you get the list of content, you then get the list of block types, which properly belongs under structure. And any further comments on this proposal?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Are there any instances where under the blocks tab, any contrib modules might change the behavior or make the make it more than just content? Because I don't have a lot of experience with custom block impacting contrib modules. I just don't know if there's anything really popular out there that I might not be aware of.
Yeah, it's certainly possible for a contrib module to do that. I can't think of any. Anyone else?
Okay, then dismiss it or dismiss my question.
Well, no, don't dismiss it, just keep it in the back of your mind. So I guess my position for a long time has been that we need some proper user testing to confirm that this is a good idea. But it's been some years and no one has gotten around to doing that user testing. And maybe we should just do it. Let's at least push the issue through, do a thorough code review, make sure they've got everything right, and then market our TBC and see what the release managers say. What do you think?
Yes. I can give you a more fully formed opinion, but I feel strongly that content should be with content. My biggest concern is calling it blocks when it's content for blocks. But I can't come, like, we want it to be short. I can't think of a better solution. If over the course of building a patch and testing it out and seeing what it actually would look like, if we could come up with a better name than just blocks, because to me that would be confusing, especially for old timers who might expect it to be linked back to structural things. And I would probably recommend that there be some links on the page to get you over to the block structure section, and vice versa, just in case people are looking for it. But I think that content really does not belong under structure.
So let's see, does that fit an existing pattern when we are on the content listing nodes? Are there any links to admin structure content? So that would be a new pattern if we were to link it back. You know, the toolbar is there to get you from one to the other. And go ahead.
Do you have the patches applied on your
do.
installation?
I do not.
Because I would have an installation here. Because in the patch for the custom block library for the section moved to the content, there you have a link to the block layout page.
So shall I stop sharing and let you take over?
I could.
Okay.
And
I see that Aaron has joined us, Aaron McHale.
can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's basically the change. I uninstalled admin toolbar because it's in conflict with the patches, because the positions differ from the new positions, so it's confusing at the moment. But basically everything got moved out. You just have block layout and block types with the one patch, and both patches don't apply at once. There at least one fails, and it got moved to that position. And as you can see, there's a help text with pointing to the block layout page. The only problem, or not problem, but suggestion I would have, and which confused me and still is confusing me and make me at least think for a second each time, is the wording. You have custom block library, you have custom block types, and oops, I'm not sure I could quickly change. 1 second. I apply the other patch and keep the other. Compose install.
By the way,
Yeah.
I'll post my site into the Zoom chat. As usual, you can log in as admin. And that's just a plain Drupal 10 site with Umami demo profile.
Yeah, and that's the other patch applied. As you can see, the block layout changed, and your custom block library gets moved back in. While, oops, I have to clear the caches again. Huh. I thought I've applied it, but it's not working now, right now. Yeah, point is, then I do it in a spoken way. Point is, the block types get moved on the same level like block layout, comment types, contact forms, and so forth. I'm in the, oh, now I understand what's the problem. In the wrong. Now we're talking. Okay. As you can see, block types got moved there. It was based on one of my comments. At the moment, it's called custom block types. And that way you had block layout, then books, then comment types, then contact forms, content types, and then at the end, custom block types. That way you have block layout and custom block types somewhere beneath. So the disconnect, I considered a problem. And at the same time, it's always the question, if you have custom block types, are there any regular block types as well? So Musgrave agreed and already changed it to simply block types. And that brings back to the question for the other patch. Because also custom blocks, the difference I was not quite aware and got explained yesterday in the Drupal dojo. Because the difference between a block and a custom block, it was clear to me for a long time until yesterday. And I wonder if it would make sense to, for one, custom block library, the concept of library in the whole content area. You don't have library somewhere else. And on the other hand, it would be consistent. Would it make sense to make it just block and also there in the tab title? And
I think so. I think the only reason for the long custom block library is for where it currently lives in the menu and path structure. I think if we move it to the content section, then we can just label it blocks.
Yeah, but the point is to distinguish, if you go to the block layout, it might be reasonable then, because things like site branding, search form, main navigations, those are all blocks, but defined in code and not like in the UI, like the custom blocks, which is the main difference from my understanding. And would it make sense to make it more apparent in that block layout section, which blocks are, let's call it system or core blocks or however, but to switch it around from make the special one, make custom blocks, not the special ones, but the other way around, and rename it from custom blocks to blocks and the other blocks to something else, or label it in a certain way.
So I think the short answer is that we already have this category column, but I think Aaron wants to say something.
Hello. Yeah, I joined slightly late, but yeah, I think this is all generally positive. I always find it slightly weird that everything to do with blocks was under structure or block layout, which made sense up until the point we added layout builder to core, and then it's like, why am I going to block layouts to add blocks that actually I'm never going to place in the block layout? So separating those to be clear that these can be used for other things other than just like putting in the regions makes a lot of sense. And they are content after all, like media. So putting them under content, I think also makes sense. On that similar, and also like breaking the block, taking the block types and putting them directly under structure again, I think also makes perfect sense, because that's where everything else of that kind of, you go to add a type with the fields and whatever, like everything else just sits under structure. So makes perfect sense to me. I do wonder if like, because custom blocks, that term, maybe, I think I've just thought off the top of my head, maybe instead of custom blocks, what about content blocks? Because like custom blocks does sound a bit weird in that, well, technically you could add like a block plugin, like theoretically someone could just make a custom module, add a block plugin, and we don't consider that to be a custom block, even though it's literally a custom block. So maybe being specific about like, these are content blocks, you add content to them and you can add content block types. Maybe that's a better way of naming them.
Yeah, Ralph, can you go to the modules page for a second? Because I
In
think
which install, in the patch with the type, or doesn't matter at all?
it probably doesn't matter.
Okay.
And find the core custom block module. What is the machine name of that module?
Block content.
So Drupal is already ambiguous about exactly Aaron's suggestion, and the machine name agrees with his suggestion that it's a content block and not a custom block.
Yeah.
And certainly I've had the same thought that to me a custom block is one that I write with custom code in PHP. not a content block.
So we could even rename the well, relabel, I guess, the module, because the machine name is already suggesting that we should call these block, call the module block content, or even content blocks. I mean, block content, I guess as a machine name is okay, but like, I don't know, content blocks, block content. Like if from an alphabetical order, like if we name the module block content, like it puts it right next to block. So I don't know.
Okay, and then Ralph, did you want to keep going?
There isn't much about the patch because everything else already working. It's, from my point of view, only the wordsmithing,
Okay.
which is debatable. So yeah.
Well, I have another suggestion to go along with this. Block layout should not be under structure, it should be under configuration. That's certainly true from the technical point of view, as Drupal divides things into code and content and configuration. In that sense, it absolutely belongs under configuration. Does it make sense from a site administrator's or a site builder's point of view? I guess that's the real distinction. Who manages block layout? Is that more an administrator's task or a site builder's task? Thomas, do you have a point of view on that?
I think it really depends on your context. So for people who are using Drupal out of the box, I think it's a very fair point that it would only really be done by the site administrator. But for really complex super mega sites that use a different approach, I don't know if that's necessarily going to hold true. I'm just trying to think of like real world examples. And it's come a long way since I last had to deal with a big group of people.
Well, certainly on a big complex site, if you want to tie down the block layout and not give your administrators access to it, then you can do that through permissions. And then
I'm just trying to think of how like the layout like I don't know if layout is an administrative task. That's what I'm really trying to think of, is what instances do I know of a site administrator doing the block layout versus some designer doing the block layout, someone who had more of a design aesthetic.
Okay, Aaron, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I have a crazy idea, but let me prefix it by saying I think again the conversation is, this is kind of like a post layout builder, post paragraphs kind of conversation, because the purpose of what you use block layout for is it's kind of changed. Like if you wanted to build a homepage pre like layout builder, the easiest way in some ways was just to go in and add a bunch of blocks to block layout and make them only visible on like / whatever. But now with layout builder, like the role that a site builder could do that just by creating a node with layout builder or paragraphs. And if you go to Ralph, could you go to the structure and then block layout for a second? So block layout. So if we took custom block library and put it under content, the only thing this becomes just about laying out blocks. And we've got tabs there for each theme. So I'm thinking, why don't we just put this under appearance? Because if you then go to appearance, you also have individual setting screens for each theme. And so it wouldn't be like too hard to add necessarily, maybe not under the settings tab, but like under the list, if you go to the theme, And like when next to the configure link, maybe there's like a layout link or a blocks link or something. Because again, like this, it's very theme specific. Like if you install a theme, though the theme defines the regions, and those regions are what you place blocks in. So like your next protocol is probably like structure block layout to see what blocks are there and place your own blocks. And to me, it kind of makes sense that all of that you would do under appearance.
That is certainly worth considering. I'm not going to decide in this meeting what the right answer is. So I suggest the following next steps. We need a meta issue. Maybe we already have one to group these proposals. Let's see, I don't see a parent issue on the issue to move custom blocks to content. I do see some related issues. So I think we need to group them together because there are certain things that, as Ralph pointed out, currently conflict and need to be done together. So, first, move custom block library to content. I think everyone agrees on that. Second, change the wording. And don't call them custom blocks anymore. Call them content blocks or just blocks, depending on the context. We need a new issue to consider the two proposals that Aaron and I just floated of moving block layout either under configuration or under appearance. So we need to create one new issue and one new meta issue, do a little issue management there. And then I think at the next Drupal camp you go to, you should try to do a BOF and get some opinions on, start off to get everyone on your side by saying, should we move the custom block library to content? And everyone will be on board with that. And then move on to the question of where the layout page should go. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and also I guess like looking at the appearance page, like if it's decided that this is a good home for it, I mean, it could just be another local task along the top. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a link on each card. But then it could be both. Like it could be the local task all on the top, but then also each card could have a link to it, because I think that's already what's happening with those settings links. Like I think if you click the settings link, it takes you to one of the tabs under. Yeah, exactly. So we could it could literally just replicate that behavior.
Yeah, I like that.
But one question, do we necessarily adjust your block settings for each theme installed? Because usually you just do it for your default theme and the rest really doesn't matter.
I think it is per theme. It's definitely configured per theme.
Yeah, that's
I don't
true,
know if
but
there's a default because each theme defines its own regions. So I think what Drupal does is it tries to like be clever and like if you install a theme, it'll try and copy the blocks over, or if the theme doesn't provide, but like quite often the theme will provide a default set of blocks to be placed in the regions that it because essentially there are no, I think content might be the only like region that is required. Like every other region is up to the individual theme to decide what regions it wants. Like there's no, I mean, there's some consensus, but there's no like hard and fast rules about what you have to name regions. It's totally up to each individual theme. And
Yeah.
I've seen some crazy use cases of that, to be honest.
And under blocks, we probably wouldn't have a global column. We'd just have one for each of the enabled themes. It would default to the front end theme, the default theme. So just by clicking on blocks, you would get the one that you use most, the blocks for your default theme.
Yeah, I wonder if that's already the case. Like, what do you get right now if you go to structure and then block layout? Because it's gonna, like, I don't know if it's just purely based on the order. Okay, maybe it does put the, that's really interesting. I wonder, yeah, I wonder if that's ordered by any kind of preference. It looks like it might be. Like if Olivero is the Olivero be the default theme, like that's probably why that's first.
Yep.
Yeah, default theme, admin theme, any others in alphabetical order is the way I would do it.
Yeah.
And any other ideas for what the next steps should be? Any volunteers for creating the meta issue and the new issue to move the layout page? I think I may have time to do that. I'll take that on.
Sure, I was gonna I would volunteer to do one, but I have an absolutely jam-packed weekend, so already my to-do list is already way too long.
Great. Yeah, I think it would be nice to get this done. Oh, and in Slack, I'm sorry, I missed you said something a few minutes ago.
No problem. No problem.
Well, do you want to just say what you've written in the chat rather than me read it?
Just wanted to add that Brandon yesterday, when we were discussing the two issues at the Drupal dojo, had the same idea like Aaron at the point where I said I also had a comment after Aaron there. I haven't known what he wanted to suggest, and well, then it was the same like Brandon added. So yeah, so +1 from Brandon's end for the idea, as well as from me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're about halfway through the hour. Should we move on to a different topic? Aaron, I know you made some comments on the issue for today's meeting. Would you like to talk about one of these?
Oh, yeah, I was posting forward the I don't yeah, so these got brought forward obviously. I guess I don't know specifically, but I haven't looked too much at any of these too closely, but I guess the last one looks like it could be quite a straightforward one just from based on the title.
Okay, shall we have a look at that? So the issue number is 1345272. Move actions administration item under admin config workflow. So triggers, actions, and workflow are tightly coupled concepts in Drupal, but for some reason they are scattered in 3 different menu trails. Triggers is under structure, actions is under config. Workflow is also under config. And if you use the rules module, that's also under workflow. So are triggers and actions enabled by default? So let me see.
I'm trying to remember what module do those come from again?
There is the core
Oh,
actions
actions.
module, which provides a user interface. And maybe that's also where the triggers come from. And then Drupal core, it's not a module, but Drupal core provides the basic framework for actions. I don't think there's a trigger module or anything, is there? Yes, I think it's just the actions module. So let's install that. And and then structure. What did it say was under structure? Admin structure triggers. Well, I'm not seeing it. Enabling the module should be enough. I shouldn't have to clear caches, should I? I'll clear them anyway off screen just to see if it helps.
According to comment number 12, by catch, triggers is no longer in core, but actions is still not under the workflow admin item.
Okay.
Oh, so what was providing triggers then, Ralph?
No idea. I was just searching for the word, the term triggers in the issue, because I haven't found it either right now. So
Let's see. I think I have a Drupal 7 site running. Oops, guess it's not running. I could start it up and we could have a look, but I think that's where it is. But anyway, so forget about triggers, but actions are under config system actions. So config system actions. And under workflow, we have just workflows. And if you have the contrib rules module, that comes under workflow. And here are the available actions. The interesting ones are the configurable ones. So you'll see these, for example, on the people page. These various things in this drop-down list are all actions. Add the administrator role to selected users, add the author role to selected users. I think those are all configurable versions of the same code action. So here are a bunch of things, and then an advanced action. Right, those are all examples of this base action. So the proposal is that instead of putting it under system, it should go under workflows. Any comments? I'm not. I don't see why this is such a great idea.
I guess yeah, I'm kind of struggling with this one. I guess if there was a more a tighter relationship between like actions and workflows, like I don't know off the top of my head any like, I mean maybe there is like, can you in core can you like trigger actions when a workflow stage is reached? Because that'd be pretty cool if you could. I just never tried it.
So let's see. In the chat, Ralph has posted a link that this is talking about the trigger module being removed from core. But I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it was replaced by rules.
Which is still in contrib.
Yeah.
So your question was, can you trigger an action in core? So the views bulk operation module used to be contrib, and much of its functionality has been moved to core, and that's what provides
Right.
this user interface for applying actions to a selectable list of users or of content or anything else. It's also pretty easy to make an action programmatically or to execute an action programmatically. And I guess what is currently under workflows? Currently that's the content moderation workflows. I don't see that that's tied to actions. I guess if you install the contrib rules module, which is the recommended replacement for triggers, that shows up under workflows, but I guess there are different ideas about what workflows means. I don't have a strong opinion on this proposal. Any other comments?
I guess I don't know. I kind of agree with you. I don't really have a strong feeling either, but I guess if we're thinking of what's the most logical place for it, the term workflow kind of means I guess you could say it means going from one thing to another thing, and there's steps in between or a flow or something that happens. So I guess in the sense of workflows in Drupal are kind of something can move through different stages of a workflow. And so I guess actions to me seems kind of related to that, even if there's not a direct one-to-one link in core. It's the kind of thing the workflows group, let's say, seems like the most logical home. Particularly, I guess, if you're adding other contrib modules like rules or the ECA module. I mean, I don't know if rules uses the workflow or ECA use the workflow headings. But if they did, then that would be a stronger use case based on what's contrib's done. Okay, Ralph saying ECAs and workflows. Yeah, I guess I can see the value in doing this. Because the thing is, without something like ECA or rules, I out of the box, I've never had much of a need to go and configure the actions. So if you then install one of these modules to, you maybe have a more of a stronger need, and so maybe it would seem more logical to have actions under workflows in that situation. I presume, Ralph, do you know if ECA, does that use the built-in actions from core, or
Yes.
does that provide its own action system?
No, it uses the actions from core as well as external.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, that probably adds a further use case to putting it under workflow.
Yeah. I also don't have a strong preference, but I agree with Aaron and Benji. And another point from my perspective, actions felt always a bit odd under system in general, because for the system, I expect different pages there than such an action list. That feels wrong somehow. Can't explain why exactly, but you're muted, Aaron, but you have the green out.
No, I wasn't saying anything. Maybe that's just a Zoom bug.
Think of that actions are used in core is in these listing pages, like people, content. So I guess, we really need someone who's in favor of this move to give a more complete justification of why they want to do it. And I guess at this point, the main reason is that these commonly used contrib modules put their configuration under workflow. And it would be convenient for those to have actions in the same place. That seems like the main argument in favor, or did I miss something else?
No, I think that sounds about right. It's like, it's the kind of thing like, I can't think of a reason to go to this page unless you've installed rules or ECA. So if assuming that's the case for most people, then it does seem like basing it off of what's most convenient when you're using those modules is the most sensible idea.
Okay.
I guess you can create custom actions from this page. I just noticed there's a create and advanced actions. Like,
Right. For instance, you can create an action to redirect to a URL, and then you say what URL you're going to redirect to. And then using the listing page, you could apply that action to a bunch of different pieces of content. That seems like a kind of odd. I'm not quite sure what the use case for redirect to URL is. Send an email, you fill in the address and the subject and the message with some limited token support. I like this little disclaimer. Not all placeholders will be available in all contexts. So try it and see if it works. Is basically the instructions there. And I do know that it's fairly easy to create a custom action. And I've done that with the intention that I created an action and then planned to use it from one of the listing pages. And that's a fairly easy bit of custom code to do. And I often prefer to do that rather than write an update function, which sort of does it automatically when new code is deployed.
I like that on this page you can play what I might call token roulette. It's a good feature of Drupal right there.
So in Drupal 7, the token module was in contrib, and it was moved into, or some of it was moved into core in Drupal 8, still there in Drupal 9 and 10. But there is still the user interface for the token browser, which is in contrib. And I just installed that and reloaded the page. So this makes it less of a roulette. Although, this sort of tells you all the available contents. Funny that it puts it in without the brackets. But
It's just another feature of token roulette.
yes, this just makes it easier to, you're not typing random characters into a token. You have some guidance as to what might work.
Some of those tokens can get pretty like complex in terms of the identifiers. So I'm surprised this is not already in core. I mean,
This browser.
yeah, I think there's an issue about it somewhere, but like surprised that hasn't made more progress.
Oh, I can move around the modal and then I can resize it. Neato. There we go. So what are the next steps for this issue? Do we just want to say, yeah, go ahead and do it? That commonly used contrib modules are a good enough reason? Do we want to think about it more? It certainly needs a summary update because we shouldn't be talking about triggers anymore. Is there anything else we can say at this point?
It sounds about right.
Does anyone feel like writing that comment? Okay, I suppose I can do it. I won't say a lot. And maybe I'll rewrite the summary myself. We have a few minutes left, probably not enough to have a meaningful discussion on another issue. In the US, daylight savings time is ending, I think in about a week. So for me, next week's meeting will be at the same time. And if we don't change it, it'll shift by an hour after that. If we are going to stick with the current time, we don't have to do anything. But maybe I'll make another poll, try again in the user channel to get some feedback, because of course the people who aren't here also have opinions and preferences that matter. Any other closing remarks? Go ahead.
Well, the meetings are pinned to UTC, is that right?
Yes, the meeting starts at 1400 UTC. And
Okay.
if we don't change anything, that will continue to be the case. And it will be an hour earlier in the day for me, starting in 2 weeks. But that's okay. And if people don't have opinions, then we'll just leave it as it is. But I will create a poll again, try to get some feedback on that. Okay, thanks for attending. I don't want to stretch out the meeting for 5 minutes just to reach the end of the hour, so we'll do it again next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Benji.
Thanks,
you.
everyone.